go. Back to, well, I may be biased simply from having lived here the whole time, but certainly my favorite state. As much as I like going everywhere else, I can't replace home. You know what I'm saying? But I was just kind of getting into a little bit of an idea of something to discuss on the way to this 30 minutes of cardio, and then we can I'll do a little post cardio pump check, which will really be an unpumped check, just to kind of see how we're sort of looking. That's not a bad idea to look at yourself posing if you're concerned with your own kind of like self-perception of your progress, because looking at yourself fully pumped, cool lighting, veiny, pre-workout, that's extra cool. You know what I'm saying? But that's temporary, right? That's just a what would that be, right? You just took a damn invincibility star in Mario Kart, right? You're extra fancy for a minute, right? But then you got to go back to normal. But what I was kind of getting at was, what's your highlight reel of the day, or of the last few weeks, or the last few months, or of however long? Because when it comes to like seeing anybody who's getting some shit done, be it like social media character, bodybuilder guys, fitness dudes, just anything, right? Car show kind of guys who love working out, whatever. The ratio of cool shit that's like interesting and just fun to show off and like make videos about, or just like just be able to look at, that is about, I'd say maybe 2% seems a little low. Definitely less than 10% of the amount of like prep and just other related work that goes on that is not so fun and interesting. You know what I'm saying, right? For every insane set of squats, there is, sitting around in front of a bowl of chicken and rice, or just doing 30 minutes of cardio. I mean, let's even be conservative and say I've only done. Well, I mean, I've had stints where I wasn't doing my daily cardio, that's for sure. But I mean, even a year, let's say 1 year, which I mean, I've been doing it longer than that, but just 1 year of 30 minutes of cardio a day. So that's, let's even just cut it down to 300. Let's just say 300 days out of 365. That's nearly, I think that's like 6 days a week-ish, maybe 5.5 technically. But either way, around 5 or 6 days a week of 30 minutes of cardio, right? So 300 times half an hour, 150 hours straight of sitting on the bike pedaling over the course of just a year. That's not even counting the freaking like 2-month period earlier in prep when I was doing 2 hours a day. So even right then, that was like 120. Like in a 2-month period, I feel like I've I mean, honestly, it's kind of sad to say, but in that 2-month period of doing 2 hours of cardio a day, that's more cardio than anyone's ever done in their life. Well, not anyone, but some people. You know what I'm saying? But that's not really, that's not cool. You're not going to make a TikTok edit out of sitting on the bike pedaling, right? That's just not really, but it's something that is important for the grand scheme of what I'm working toward. So, of course, I'm going to do it, right? And, it's there's a certain kind of just understanding that it doesn't have to be the flashiest thing in the world, because it's just necessary, right? We're all looking at, let me think here, right? I mean, it's cool to be the architect. Like, oh, I designed this building. I designed the Empire State Building. Look at this mock-up. Oh, it's incredible. I did that. Not so glamorous to be the dude laying rebar and, pouring concrete, right? Because it's slower. It's not as interesting. It's just, I don't want to say grunt work, because obviously there's a lot of prep involved, but it's just necessary small steps that scale towards something greater. You know what I'm saying? So if we're only watching, like if you're like me when I was looking up to all the Callum von Moger videos, or like who else was I watching? Honestly, I wasn't really a die-hard bodybuilding fan until I really got into it. But I mean, I was watching a lot of like Rich Piana sort of stuff. But insert whoever you were looking up to when they're showing their coolest stuff, and just deadlift compilations, and just like crazy poses when they're extra lean. I mean, that's not them 24/7, right? I mean, don't forget, every time some dude finishes a crazy ass workout or bodybuilding show or just anything, the guy's gonna go home, chill, play on his phone, just like you are. And so it's what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't have to be this 24-hour, like, always on, just cool shit, fun all the time, extra, like, in this, in kind of in relation to the cooler part of, like, coming in, hitting a serious pose, just looking nuts, maybe going into competitions, anything else like that, PRs. There's just what you might call, chores that just go along with it, that, even though they're not as cool, they're still necessary, right? So I guess I'm trying to put more emphasis on the things that aren't really so just interesting and cool, and because they kind of they're just necessary for the sake of making a certain level of progress in whatever other kind of thing you're doing, right? So that's my sort of thing. Even if I'm just doing 30 minutes in the scheme of my whole working out, one day of cardio will change nothing, right? If I went back over the course of everything and I skipped one day of cardio or one lift or even like 1 week of cardio, it's not going to change anything, right? But it's the fact that there's been so many in a row that now it's kind of just scaled up to where it is, right? So don't get discouraged, and just don't prioritize the cool shit. Everybody's always oh man, I want to start posting, I want to start making whatever, I want to start hitting PRs. How many working strength building sets does it take to reach a 315 bench? How many workouts, how many years does it take to get to a 4-plate squat for 5 or 6 reps? That's not the fun part, right? But if you can at least get yourself to a point where you're not being turned off or just discouraged by the fact that it's a lot before you get to the cool stuff, then you're good. My thing is, I've always been I've almost got, I don't want to say imposter. No, that's not the right word I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of I feel a little bit hypocritical when I say that sometimes, because for me, the workouts just coming in, that's the fun part, So everything else that happens afterward, it's just, I don't want to say a byproduct, but it's just a nature of course, So if you know somebody who loves working out, guess what? The guy's probably going to look like it, at least after a certain period of gaining experience and making real ass freaking gains. So my whole thing, and this is like half just how it is, but it's definitely how I like that it is because the grind aspect of working out, where we're talking legs, failure, sweating, cardio, diet, food, everything, that's the fun part, So then the results are even more fun because they're it just kind of happens. You're going on a freaking stroll and you happen to find $20 on the sidewalk, right? That might not be the best kind of way to put it, but that's I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. But either way, let's get in there, finish 30 minutes of cardio, and see how I'm looking nearly 4 months into this off season. Luckily, well, I guess not luckily, it was kind of planned, not too soft. I'm trying to stay relatively lean so that I can get extra damn peeled come this spring. I'm talking leaner than I've ever been, but I'll see in a few minutes. I find it very interesting that it's such a craze, and I know I've been saying this forever. I will get over this whole training ideology, BS phase, but it's I see it so much I can't stop talking about it. But as much as I see people trying to make sure they optimize every tiny little bit of their training and their workouts and full body every other day and fatigue, and I don't hear cardio getting thrown around at all. Honestly, I have never I've never seen pillars of the workout optimization side of things doing any cardio. I've never seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure it has, but I don't see it talked about. And the cardio, I think, is kind of a sort of a slept-on stat to work on and build up, because it plays into everything else. When I'm talking 30 minutes of cardio, that might not seem like a lot. And in terms of overall workload, it really wasn't. I'd kind of put cardio, oh goodness, kind of a more mindless category of training, because as long as you do it at your intended intensity, set the difficulty, pedal at the same consistent RPM, that's all you have to think about, right? Really, I'm actually trying not to think about it by playing on my phone and like just distracting myself, or like watching a show or a movie or something, so that it just kind of happens without my sort of conscious effort, right? So I mean, it's like nothing, it's like you're folding your laundry and you're watching Breaking Bad for the 8th time at the same, while you're doing it. It just makes it go by quicker, and it might seem mindless, but it plays into everything else, right? Let's talk direct gym performance. You're gonna have better workouts. Someone who has good cardio will not be as winded from their sets, and will be able to recover faster in between, get their heart rate down. Ooh, okay, all right, I'm ready to hit it one more time. And during their sets, it might not be so important with, lower weight or lower volume, higher weight sets. You're not really testing anybody's cardiovascular ability by, doing a 1 rep max. That's just at the extreme. I wouldn't do that. But let's say you're doing squats. Look, man, my heart rate gets freaking crazy high during a set of squats, and my oxygen load, like the demand for oxygen in my body, is basically probably as high as it ever is after or right during the peak of a set of squats. I'm burning so much freaking energy. Quads, glutes, lower back, my whole freaking torso to brace, calves, every stabilizer imaginable. So there are a lot of sets of squats that I think get finished prematurely because the guy just runs out of breath. It might feel like he's this is as much as I can do, but if the guy had better cardio, he'd be able to get some deeper breaths in during the set, and be able to keep going a little harder. Not only that, but be able to repeat that level of intensity for the sets to come, and not feel like he has to give up on the workout because he's just so freaking like totally out of it. Right? So that's the actual in the gym aspect. Outside of the gym, on a baseline, changing nothing else about somebody's routine. Anything. Diet, their training, or lack of training, doesn't matter. If you gave somebody 30 minutes of cardio, like real, they sweat, they're not just doing like a 1 mile an hour walk on the treadmill. I'm like this is a real cardio session. Not high intensity, but intense enough. After a year, there will be a noticeable difference because their baseline level of body fat will decrease, because if you're, look at the equation, man, you're burning more energy than you're consuming, at least, potentially to a degree. So, what's that going to do? You're going to have to resort to actually using some of your internal energy stores, aka adipose tissue, your fats. So, bulked up or cut down, you're going to just be leaner. And in a dieting context, up or down, same sort of situation, you'll be able to just make quicker adjustments to your body composition, because your ability to either work with the food that you're eating or lack thereof in a dieting phase will just be better. I can eat more food when I'm doing my cardio because I'm putting myself in a situation where it's like, all right, shit, man, I need more energy, right? I got to be a guy who can handle burning and refueling a lot of energy, just because it's more of an athletic day to do cardio, crazy lift later, repeat, and as the 4th point, you're going to feel better about yourself because everybody else is skipping their cardio like a punk, and you're actually getting it done. And that's not a negligible thing to say, or a sort of thing to think. There's a certain feel good of somebody where they're watching everybody take the escalator and they take the stairs. They're watching everybody just kind of just do run-of-the-mill whatever movements, and they're actually seriously bringing it, because that's just confirmation that what you're doing is more difficult than what everybody else is putting themselves through, and it's kind of like a chip on your shoulder sort of motivation. The fact that a smaller percentage of whoever's into working out is even willing to do their cardio is gonna, it kind of makes you feel like you're in the in club because you're actually doing it and everybody else is slacking off. So that's how I feel about the matter, right? But like I was saying in the beginning, if you get to a point where it's just what you do, it's part of your day, you don't really treat it like a chore, it's just like, this is what I'm doing this morning, setting yourself up for success. Because then it's like passive income, you know? To have to go to a workout and have it feel like a chore, like you, like that sucks, you know? That feels like you're forcing yourself to do it, But if you're doing it for fun because you like it, you know, it's like having a job you love. You're never really working. You know, that's my sort of outlook. But yeah, so plan now is go home, get some grub in me, and then get ready for. Actually, what am I talking about? Get ready for nothing. I'm making today a rest day. My last 2 days, my sleep was kind of scrappy, and I can tell my forearms are a little tender up in here. Not like injury kind of tender, but it's just something I'll notice. Like if I, I'm not anti-rest day, of course. You know, for me, if I can tell I'm a little under-rested, I'm kind of overdoing it, I'll feel my forearms brachial radialis kind of up in here, this sort of muscle. It'll start getting a little tender right where it inserts. And that's usually my cue to either just make that day a little lighter or just totally refuel, reset, and get ready for a wild lift the next day. So I think that's sort of the plan now. But I'll see you for I guess whatever lift goes down tomorrow. It should be arms, but that is there is some potential to change it. I'm not totally certain. But either way, I'll see you then.